games, and comics fans, welcome to another episode of the Weekly Wednesday Warrior, sponsored by Power Card Games and Comics in bright and sunny Port Ewing, New York. My name is Skylar Hathaway.
I'm Chris Potter.
We haven't done these in a while.
Yeah.
Been a real while. So I want to run down what we do here at Power Card Games and Comics on the Weekly Wednesday Warrior. We take what we think is our best comics of the week that we have read, and we talk about them. We try to summarize them to the best of our ability, failing at times.
Yeah.
and we just think, we tell you why we think you should go out and buy these comic books. Stat immediately.
Right.
So that's exactly what we're going to do.
Try and inform the new reader what's good on the wall. Like, separate the what do you do with old milk? You know, like the cream rises to the top or something.
From the fat or something. We're not proud.
There's an analogy there.
People. So here we are. What do we got?
Alright, so this week we got Moon Knight number 4 and Rook Exodus 1. This is who is this? It's Ivan Hayes. Jason Fabek didn't do this cover. I'm pretty sure it's
the cover. Oh yeah, the cover.
And the main team is Jeff Johns, Jason Fabek.
Yeah.
I get those two confused all the time. They're like they occupy the same spot in my brain as far as style goes.
I could see their similarities, but they really have like different strengths and weaknesses. Seriously.
Yeah.
So we got those two books, and Chris has a couple of honorable mentions.
Yeah, I have Ultimate Spider-Man 3. I can't stress enough. This is like one of my favorite books. It's the first I read every time I have a stack of comics in front of me, and this comes out. The main thing keeping this off the show, I think issue 1 did have a lot of like depth to it. There was a real soul going on there. A lot of like talking about tragedy and different like character things. And I think as the book has continued, it's just been a Spider-Man book. You know, it's still the same team. The writing is very consistent for all its characters.
Hickman and Cicchetto.
Hickman and Cicchetto, yeah. Cicchetto's been killing it with his pencil/inks. As he did on Daredevil, we talked about his art a number of times. I don't think we need to go back and do it. So it looks great. The writing is good. It's just not. It's not what we're looking for show material.
At the moment, it could get on there eventually if it keeps up as good as it is.
Yeah. And the other thing I have is Daredevil 7. This is just a fun pick for me. Wolverine fights Daredevil in this issue. It was a lot of fun. The art was great by Aaron Kuder. I like the idea of Matt Murdock Exorcist. I like a lot of the writing choice they've been making. It just has never blown me away. I've never read an issue of this and been like, yeah, that's what I've been waiting for since Chip left Daredevil. It's just solid.
If
Pick it up if you want to.
If anything, this is finally the issue that you're like, yeah, this is what I've been waiting for.
Right, because this has fucking Wolverine in it.
This issue.
I'm like
it's like
blinded.
It's like a Marvel team up, basically.
They do tie it into the ongoing story, which I appreciate. It's not just Wolverine shows up and he teams up with Daredevil and fights the Hand or some shit. There's been this ongoing plot of like sins coming to Matt as like these demons he has to exorcise or whatever.
Yeah.
And it all ties into like his resurrection or whatever, his relationship with God, all these typical Daredevil things. I guess a little bit more supernatural than usual. And Wolverine was one of them. So it's not just like we broke away from the plot to have a Wolverine story. We tied Wolverine into the ongoing story, which I appreciate more than most team-up stories.
I'm going to go off on a tangent here. You familiar with Roge Antonio?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, great. So there's this guy who does art and comics. His name is Roge, R-O-G-E. His last name is Antonio.
Okay.
And he's on the Symbiote Spider-Man 2099 book.
Oh, okay.
He's also on, there's like another book that came out recently he's on. He's been getting some work recently. I know him from Batman and Robin Eternal. He did some of the issues for Batman and Robin Eternal.
Gotcha.
Guy's been around. Not strong.
Okay.
Not strong. Imagine if, so he's a bad example, I guess, but Symbiote Spider-Man being on our minds here. Imagine if Greg Land was on Daredevil with Ahmed instead of Cooter.
Right.
Would you be reading it?
Probably not, no.
I think Cooter is bringing 75% of the heat on this book.
For sure. Even this cover here, great work by Aaron Kuder. Yeah. This would... John Romita Jr. is typically on the covers. I have not been digging his stuff for a while. I feel like, you know, as he's bringing 70%
done like
of the
half
strength...
the covers. It's been like half. Romita half.
I think
Cooter.
those are all variants. I think
I think so.
JRJR is the regular assignment cover guy.
Okay.
The one they put on, like...
That's also a variant cover.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay.
I'm just talking about this cover
I
specifically.
think Cooter's been doing a bunch of variants.
Yeah.
Which could be the A covers. I don't know why they're not. Well, I guess I do.
John Romita Jr. sells more than Aaron Cooter.
Sells comics.
Especially with Daredevil. He has a big, I guess, relationship with him due to some 90s stuff.
Yeah, Blackheart.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Typhoid Mary and stuff.
Yeah. All the Anisenti stuff.
Yeah, a lot of it, yeah. So I would put Batman up there just because it got out of this stupid Joker story that didn't pan out. And, that was alright. I shouldn't shoot it down that hard. It was real alright. And I really dug the artist on it. It was, what's his face again? From
Giuseppe Camuncoli.
Oh, I was thinking it was somebody else, but I do like Camuncoli and Andrea Sorrentino. I have a Camuncoli commission at home I'm not thrilled with, but he's a nice enough guy. So that the Batman 146 was cool. They were doing something with Zur-En-Arrh.
Yeah,
and
still looks great.
Involved.
Jorge Jimenez.
It's still Jorge Jimenez and doing the cover on top of that too. He even has a couple moments in that issue now that it's coming back to mind where I thought he's been doing this on and off. He'll since that issue of Batman where they crossed the multiverse and he had to do a bunch of different styles, he's been just applying those styles as he feels like he wants to. So there's some Mike Mignola looking stuff inside of 146.
That's really cool.
It's really, just 2 panels that it's he knew he didn't need to pour his usual style on, so he just did 2 big black spotted shadowy looking black and white panels.
Honestly, if you think about the most iconic Batman images, besides 2 or 3 drawn by Jim Lee, they're all very simple. Batman is a character with such a strong silhouette that I don't know. I feel like there's something almost more iconic about taking a lot away from the character.
Yeah, or you're like Toddy Mack and you just render the cape and nothing else.
Yeah.
But yeah, too true. But that brings us to the meat and potatoes here, meat and potatoes, since there's 2 things here.
Yep.
Which we don't usually do this on the show. We usually do this before the show. And that is to dictate a review order.
Oh, I think Moon Knight is.
I think Moon Knight's
definitely first.
First, yeah. Didn't even need to. So we got Moon Knight. I think this is a pretty simple summary, actually. My favorite summaries are simple summaries.
Of course.
Where in this, so Vengeance of Moon Knight is the title of the book, and we're reviewing Vengeance of Moon Knight number 4 by Jed McKay, Alessandro Cappuccio, and Rochelle Rosenberg, that I will never forget to mention. She's just bringing the heat. And whoever this dude doing the cover is, this Paratori guy, I don't know who he is, but he's killing it. And he did the last one too, I believe. I guess Finch did the first 2 years.
Finch was doing the first 2.
So the story is it's 2 stories happening at the same time. It's Badir is talking to Dr. Sherman. And while he's talking to Badir, simultaneously, or at least from what we can understand at first, Tigra and Badir are raiding the fake Moon Knight's base of operations.
Right.
We find out as the comic goes on that the conversation with Badir and Dr. Sherman happens right before the raid on the new Moon Knight's place. They go and raid the place. They they surprise the new Moon Knight, evil Moon Knight. They catch him off guard. Badir gets his mask. Big unveil. It's the Shroud. Issue ends.
Yeah,
that's
it.
Pretty much it. The reason it's on this show, we're 4 issues in to a Moon Knight book.
Right.
No Moon Knight. No Mark Spector.
No Mark Spector at all.
That's
in a way, we're 40 issues into an ongoing Moon Knight story.
Yeah. This. So at first, I remember complaining about the first issue and saying that I think we even reviewed it, and I think I said that. Well, either way.
Yeah.
My thoughts were that this was good, but it didn't set up a new run at all.
Right.
And now 4 issues in, I was wrong. Because he's been doing this thing every single issue where McKay takes a character and throws him at Dr. Sherman, and then also tells a story in the main happening events that are going on that are driving these people to Dr. Sherman simultaneously amongst these meetings of Dr. Sherman. And it's been every issue, and every issue is a different member of the Midnight Mission.
Right.
It's been really good for that reason. It actually kind of reminds me of remember when in between Zdarsky's run and Charles Soule run, there was like a mini series called The Man Without Fear.
Right.
And every issue of that was a different member of the Defenders coming to Matt and going like, listen, man, you can do this, you know, because he was like injured or something.
Different part of his support system. You know, there was an issue with like Foggy. I think there was even an issue with Kingpin. That was by far the best one in my opinion.
They were all solid. They were all Jed McKay books.
Jed McKay.
Jed McKay books.
I think Yvonne Caleo drew a couple of them too.
Yeah,
he's a great artist.
Some heat on that miniseries had some serious heat, especially like coming off a Charles Soule run.
Yeah.
People really like that dude. I'm not one of them.
By the way, I think that's really neglected as part of Zdarsky's stuff. I think that's a great prelude. I think you should totally read that.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And it also sets you up for like all this other Jed McKay stuff that comes like right after that, right around that. You can go and read the like Black Hat stuff even further, and then you'll really be set up for the type of stuff that McKay writes. But in any case, it's a pretty simple summary because of this like continuous thing that he's been doing with this vengeance side of the run.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things they're talking about are actually vengeance and how they want to get back at this new Moon Knight for being a false pastor, a false preacher of the Midnight Mission, and furthermore a Fist of Khonshu without going through the rites of being a Fist of Khonshu. Dude just put on a suit. He's like as good as a cosplayer, basically.
Yeah. Except he's like weirdly, he's like some weird supernatural stuff going on.
Yeah, so then there's the Shroud.
Yeah.
Which in my notes, I know that I put down the Shroud, LOL, ? I don't know Marvel characters.
Yeah, I had to read the letters page in the back, and they briefly explain he is a West Coast Avengers member from when Moon Knight was also a West Coast Avengers member. So there's some tie there. Jed McKay's really just flopping, like, his knowledge on the table and being like, here's... Because Jed McKay is probably the writer...
Marvel comics.
He is maybe the most knowledgeable writer in comics.
That's not true.
On Marvel, at least on Moon Knight.
I've seen Jeff Johns and Tom King do this kind of thing too.
Right.
Like Tom King.
But is Jeff Johns writing Marvel?
Angleman.
Or is Tom King writing
and Jeff
Marvel
Johns
books?
with like weird like JSA villains. He'll just pull out his pocket, or like random characters. He gives rings and the lantern stuff.
Right. All his Master Green Lantern stuff came from like 2 Alan Moore issues that were super obscure before he started doing Blackest Night.
Like these guys, McKay, Johns, Tom King.
They have such reverence for that kind of stuff, and they can really push it back into the book.
And furthermore, you know who like reminds me of starting that kind of shit is Frank Miller.
Oh yeah,
Frank Miller's the kind of guy who used to pull shit out and just put it in and make it way more important.
You know who's another guy, and people I think overlook it because of how much he hates comics now. I think Alan Moore's one of those guys. I can't stress enough how much the Red Hood was such a fucking unknown part of the Joker's potential story until Killing Joke came out.
I mean, everything that Alan Moore does, he does that. Maybe not everything, but a lot of his earlier work, that's what's going on. Like Dead Man and Swamp Thing, or
I bring up the Superman stuff all the time. The 2 issues he did,
the Superman stuff
called Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, is just like a Action Comics love letter to shit you've never heard of.
He did like a run on Vigilante.
Yeah,
you know who is that? Who's still to this day? Who is that character? You know. But, you know, these guys, these writers have a good ability of bringing these characters and making them useful, giving them a new life, especially Tom King. He's like the king of that.
Yeah.
Pun not.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at. That's the summary. They get this guy. It ends on the reveal. We don't know what's going to happen with Tigre, Badir, and the Shroud thereafter. It's to be determined in the next issue. Reason it's on this show. Consistency. Wow, consistency for 4 issues. This man has used like the same gimmick and not made us bored of it at all, and brought different characters in.
Right.
The only thing that I'd say it's missing before you continue your thought there, no, you're good, is who's driving them to Dr. Sherman? You know, there was no will that Mark Spector was like, hey, I know you guys are going to be tough with this. You know, maybe you should talk to Dr. Sherman. Or Badir, Badir, who was already talking to Dr. Sherman before Mark Spector died. McKay could have given him a line somewhere in here that said, that Badir said to them, like, hey, we just dealt with a death. I've been talking to Dr. Sherman, and normally I wouldn't do something like that, but it's really been helping. I think you guys should pay her a visit as well. Nothing. We've just, like, issue 1, boom, we're dealing with, what's-her-face, the lady vampire. And she's talking to Dr. Sherman.
Reese, I think?
Reese, yeah. And then the second one is Tigra, and then the third one is Soldier, and the fourth one's now Badir. And nobody said anything about how they're all talking to Dr. Sherman, or why they're talking to Dr. Sherman, or what's the driving force here. There's just a big question there, but what's cool is it's consistent, it's fun, it's a different way of doing the book, and it's not easy juggling like two stories at the same time, and he does a pretty seamless job of that. Like right when like a portion of the dialogue between Dr. Sherman and Badir is like getting to a head, he'll cut to a scene where Tigra and Badir are doing something cool. And the scenes where in the office, Cappuccio kind of has to like turn down a little bit.
Yeah.
Like he uses a lot of blacks and shadows to set this mood in the office. And he uses whatever character Rochelle uses whatever colors that character comes with. You know, Badir's background will be all orange, and same with like Tigra with like a little green, and then Soldiers will be more black and white and straightforward. And Reese had like a lot of white because she's really taken on the Moon Knight mantle.
Right,
and stuff.
right.
It was something we got out of the Soldier interview with Dr. Sherman. He's like, Dr. Sherman's like, you're Mark Spector, but Reese is like Moon Knight. You're like two heads of the same coin here and shit. But anyway, with this issue with Dr. Badir, he kind of blows up on her a little bit because he's all pissed off and stuff, which, you know, that stands to reason. And I thought that his conversation with her was totally unnecessary, because we already know, as the audience, if you're 40 issues into this,
right?
What
Why is
Badir's
Badir mad?
motivations are. You know, we know exactly what's going on. But in a way, it's kind of nice to see him admit that, and like that means something for the character and stuff.
Right. He's a very guarded character initially.
Yeah, and now almost the opposite. Like he really is become one with this gang of people that Soldier points out, this midnight mission. You would have thought that I interrupted. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah. I totally agree. There should be like a lore reason why they're all talking to Dr. Sherman, but I do want to stress how doing these interviews really helps to mirror the structure of the last run, which was all Mark Spector based, and helps like kind of sell the idea that they have become the Midnight Mission. It was so much like they were supporting Mark Spector before, and he was using Dr. Sherman as part of the Midnight Mission. She's pretty much a member. Yeah. And now that they're the Midnight Mission, they're the ones talking to Dr. Sherman. It helps almost legitimize their like main character status, I feel like. Yeah.
Yeah, I could feel that, and I hadn't put that together for some reason. Also, my memory's just not as good as Chris's is. But he's so right. There was a lot of that in the Moon Knight run itself. It was just all with Mark until it was Mark and Badir.
Yeah,
so it's almost like a logical progression. Only I'm not a person who's ever gone to see a psychiatrist, and so for me, it's hard to be like.
It's a natural thing you do.
I've had people die in my life, and I didn't need to see a psychiatrist for it. Why do these people need to, you know? And that's the only part that's missing. But outside of that, I mean, this thing has been really solid. We'll look at my notes for a second here. Most of it is really just complimenting the art in this issue, too.
Oh, yeah.
One of my notes just says is Cappuccio is killing it, and he only gets better. He was amazing issue 1, 40 issues ago.
Yeah.
He is...
I think he really leaned into texture.
Dude, I almost want to say he's being underutilized, even. Like, give this man... Throw this man... What's a bigger book right now, even? What the fuck is Marvel doing? Put this man on Spider-Man?
X-Men?
Marvel, what are we doing? This is a whole different conversation. God darn it, man! There was a Thanos run that was really good, and it ended after 4 issues.
Yeah.
What are y'all doing? Like, Christopher Cantwell wrote 20-something issues of Iron Man. You're only going to give him 4 issues of Thanos? You kidding me?
I hope that just means that Cantwell's on whatever project is next.
I really hope so, because like, it was so cool, and the art
I think he should just be writing Illuminati. I think the voice he had for those characters, the specific team he chose was very interesting.
I think they should kick McKay off of Avengers and give Cantwell the rest of the run. Hickman.
Sure. Yeah.
This guy Cantwell is like a sleeper agent out of nowhere. I don't even know where he came from. Like I can't even trace his. I haven't done a lot of research, but I don't know any like indie titles outside of the stuff he's done while he's been working at Marvel.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know where this guy came from, but he's great. But in any case, Marvel's not doing a good job right now. Like the only books that I'm reading and the books I've been reading. Vader's on issue 44, 45. Yep. I'm reading it.
I guess Blade is more
drop. Like Blade's okay, you know.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm making it on this show. The only reason I'm reading Blade is because I don't really have like a better comparison for a Blade comic.
Okay, yeah.
Brian Hill's just writing the best Blade comic I've ever read because I've read 5 Blade comics because they're just most of the Blade comics are just super old or tie-ins to Midnight Suns and shit.
Yeah.
I want a Blade standalone comic, and that's what he's giving it to me. And he's giving it to me like in the format of like Hellblazer too. It's like really tied into like the what's the word for it? A supernatural, as opposed to it's not really a vampire story.
It's like very occult.
It's a supernatural
all that
story.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah. There's an issue of that where he goes and trains with Dracula that I suggest everybody read just for fun. It was really cool.
That sounds cool.
It was. But back to the task at hand here. This is the best Marvel book on the wall. Better than Daredevil, which Daredevil for Daredevil for maybe a couple of years was the best book on the wall.
Right.
So this is saying a lot. The Moon Knight's still the best book on the wall, and still me and Chris have like a quarter of a page of notes for it.
Yeah.
Not a lot of stuff here. Most of it's me and Chris going Cappuccio, Rosenberg, woo.
Yeah.
It's we're not. Make better comics. I'm tired of this crap. Been like 3 months since we've been here doing this show because nothing's coming out besides Wonder Woman and Transformers.
Wonder Woman, Transformers.
I had to go through 3 weeks of
Local
Batman
Man.
that was like okay. Even Local Man has like sedated itself a little bit. Like the first 6 issues, maybe even a little bit more than that. You could tell where they're pulling from, where they're taking it from. It's now evolved into its own thing. It's now coursing through its own story and leaving the world of homaging the comics that came before it quite a bit. All that stuff's still in there, but why beat it over the head? Like we're now like 10 issues into this thing. We don't need to keep telling you, he's ripping off an Image Comics to try and tell a story. You get it, and he's just like Tony Fleets. He's killing the art in that book and stuff. But like. We need stuff to chop up, man. We need more comics. It's totally outside of the Moon Knight thing. We need to bring this back around. What else? You got any notes here? Splash pages, man. Lots of splash pages.
Yep.
It's like every time we weren't in the office, we cut to a splash page. It was pretty sweet.
Just to like wake us up almost.
Cappuccio accounts for word balloons really well. I don't know if you
he leaves a lot of empty space in his art.
Yes.
Not in like a pleasing way. Like you can look at his originals and you're like, you don't notice anything's wrong really. But like there is all that black that you can use for those like really good speech bubbles.
Yeah.
I noticed the art was a lot more open than it typically is. It's because this issue is set in the day for a lot of it, which was really refreshing, especially for Rosenberg. You mentioned like the colors she typically brings to these characters, but here almost has like purple in this issue. I feel like because there's a lot of purple and orange going on during the day.
It was like
those are just kind of early day colors too, but it added like a different beauty. We're sure Rosenberg has a way of just bringing both like atmosphere and beauty to everything she colors due to the way she uses lighting, and it was just a different vehicle for expressing that using the day for once. I almost feel like she like left a note to McKay to like let her do something different, just because the fact the story is set in the day is almost like coincidental.
Makes a lot of sense though.
Yeah, they set it up as the idea is like they're surprising the Moon Knight who would be asleep during the day. That makes sense.
So I have one more negative note to go along with the lack of lore explanation for these psychiatrist visits, and that's that Tigra and Hunter's Moon don't know how to take out cameras.
Yeah.
That was a hard swallow.
I needed a line, but I just assumed they assumed taking them out would set them off anyway. They were proprietary battery.
Like Tigra goes on this 2 to 3 word bubble explanation of exactly what the security system is.
It's like battery operated.
She figures it all out and then says, "But I don't know how this works."
Yeah.
And then they just run through and trigger all of the devices anyway.
Yeah, that's pretty lazy.
I just can't. Tigra's strikes me as like a rogue type character that can sneak in, get the job done quiet and stuff like that. She's got the senses to help her do that kind of stuff like Wolverine and shit.
Yeah. And
Badir just seems like the very patient, studied, understanding, careful version of Moon Knight.
Right.
They didn't do that at all.
No, but I think if I'm thinking of McKay as a writer, he's using that because even the line at the end is they're emulating Mark. I want them to see him coming. It's all that vengeance angle. They're trying to. They're mad. They're in some degree of sorrow.
But again, right before that, Badir's you gotta hold your anger, or else you will sabotage the mission.
Yeah,
he's calm yourself so that you can use that against our enemy. And then they both just drop that months later. there are some moments where McKay does some writing, and I'm like, dude, I think you could have.
That needed a second pass.
Second pass. The editors aren't yelling at him about that kind of stuff. So
No, at this point, he's Marvel's golden boy.
If I was an editor, I'd be yelling at him about that kind of stuff. Golden Boy, and I'm not reading any of the other books he's writing outside of Moon Knight.
No.
So, dude, I flipped open Doctor Strange this month. That guy Pascal Ferry is ruining the book.
Yeah, it looks fun. They're doing like a D&D thing.
Looks fun. It looks awful.
No. I'm talking about the story.
They don't. The cover is such a bad example of what happens in that book.
Alex Ross.
It's you open that, it's jarring.
Yeah,
it's jarring. You have this Alex Ross cover. You open it up and it's Pascal Ferry. This dude doing the art in this book makes it look like a Scholastic comic book.
Yeah,
like it looks like something out of like Captain Underpants or something like that. It's so bad. It's incredibly bad. It's impressive how bad it is. This guy's so bad at art. It's impressive.
There's a really solid Chip Zdarsky Spider-Man miniseries. He also did not help out.
Right. That's the
Spider Shadow.
Oh, and that one was like written really well and shit. And just like the art was just terrible.
It was like maybe 1% better.
It's just darker, so I think it was easier for him to hide how bad
it's also like
he
in
is.
the 80s, so you're like, okay, you're doing like a stylistic homage a little bit too.
This can fit, I suppose.
It still wasn't great. I remember being very disappointed with that book.
Yeah. So another thing that this is lacking too is McKay should figure out a way to like explain who these characters are before he leaves them on a cliffhanger. Ain't nobody gonna buy Vengeance of Moon Knight 5 because the Shroud is the new Moon Knight.
No, you're gonna keep reading it.
If
like whatever.
If I found out that like Dracula was the new Moon Knight, all right.
Yeah.
All right. Right? Or like Blade, or like somebody, but the Shroud, nobody cares.
No, Jed McKay can't help himself. That's like a cool idea. Guys, that's like this West Coast Avengers character. Moon Knight fans are gonna be so excited, and we're Moon Knight fans, but not the Moon Knight fan he's talking to. Like a very specific guy who's like read everything.
People who are reading Moon Knight these days are not the people who were reading Moon Knight 30 years ago.
No.
They're not at all. Those people probably aren't reading Moon Knight.
And even people who read Moon Knight 30 years ago probably didn't read West Coast Avengers. There's a good chance they
maybe didn't. Moon Knight had a really limited amount of stuff that he's appearing over time. So if they're Moon Knight fans, they did read West Coast Avengers just because they were like, holy crap, Moon Knight's in another book after he's been canceled. I don't think we need to keep beating this one up. The cover's good. The book is pretty good.
Yeah, the art is great.
The art is really where it's at. Again, just like with that Daredevil book, if this wasn't Alessandro Cappuccio, I don't know if I'd even be here. You know?
Yeah, that's true. There was a number of issues we didn't cover near the end of Moon Knight's run, and those were in Cappuccio. I feel like they had a lot to contribute to it.
Or the last 3 issues of Vengeance.
That's about Cappuccio.
No, but we didn't cover it.
Oh, right.
We only covered this one because we're finally starting to like see something of value come out of the way that he's been writing these like past 4 issues.
Right, yeah.
But
the leitmotif is kind of like establishing itself.
But even still, moving right along.
Yep, we're talking about Rook Exodus.
We got Rook Exodus, which is the real reason we were here. It's another one of those situations where I hit up Chris and was like, yo, Chris, you gotta read this book. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And I didn't take notes on it the first time around. I just got this vibe, this whole vibe that I'm like...
Well, the Ghost Machine stuff is like pretty exciting, especially anything written by Jeff Johns that doesn't have Brian Hitch on it. It's pretty enticing.
It's such a shame that he threw that dude on Redcoat, because Redcoat seems like a fun character.
Yeah, I read the description. It was very different from what I thought. It's apparently like a time... displaced guy. He's like from the Revolutionary War.
He's not time displaced. He's immortal.
Okay, yeah.
So he just lives.
A man at a time is more the thing I was looking for.
Yeah, he just lives forever, and
but he's still wearing like all this Revolutionary War garb.
Yeah, he's got the personality of a bard.
Yeah,
he's like this like traveler who likes to have fun and has jokes and is talkative and almost a troublemaker. He's a great character. Jeff Johns has great ideas. I'm sure he's been like banking these ideas for so many years now to find an opportunity to put them in a house. My first note on this is almost non-related to the book at all. Image Comics.
Yep.
The who, the what. Image Comics, if you look at the top guys, the big important presidents of CEOs, VPs, it's a bunch of comic book makers. It's Robert Kirk. Open this up. Hold up. All right, we got Robert Kirkman, COO. We got Eric Larson, CFO. We got Todd McFarlane, President. We got Mark Silvestri, CEO. We got Jim Valentino, VP. Eric Stevenson, Publisher.
Yep.
And then that's pretty much where.
But that's the top brass.
That is the whole. That's the whole like. If you picture like Wayne Industries a meeting. You know?
Yeah, that's like your Lucian.
It's that.
And all
It's just those guys sitting in around going, "Hey, wouldn't this be cool? Yeah, I don't know. Throw $100,000 at it." My note really is okay. So that's who they are. What are they doing? Robert Kirkman bought all of the Hasbro products to bring over to Image.
Right.
Todd McFarlane is expanding Spawn further than we ever thought we'd ever see it.
Right. And more successfully than I think anyone could have anticipated.
Eric Larson is still doing Savage Dragon, and somebody's buying that comic. Not here, but somebody's buying those comics. I've had kids in the past 5 years. I've had kids come in and ask me about Savage Dragon.
Yeah.
That's pretty much.
I think it has it's either has or is about to have a world record for like the most consecutive issues drawn by someone. I think it has that record. I think it's about to hit the most like solo creative team, because I think Cerebus has that right now. I think he brought some people in from time to time, but he wrote all of it.
Okay.
And then, it's very celebrated in that way for being one creative, constantly finding new ways to reinvent itself.
Yeah.
Same book.
Yeah.
No one. Jim Lee drew one issue, and Eric Larson re-fucking did that issue because he was so pissed Jim Lee did one issue of his book.
Funny how that works out. Then you got Mark Silvestri, who I don't think he's doing any Image titles right now, but he walked over to DC and pitched a Batman book, and they bought it up super fast.
Yeah, he's had some success in Hollywood. You know, I think Witchblade had a show or some shit.
I don't even know. Is that Silvestri?
Witchblade is Silvestri. That's his claim to fame at Image. It's the closest thing he has. What else is there? Cyberforce. Shadowhawk is Jim Valentino.
Well, good. That's what I'm going to next. Jim Valentino, I don't think he's done anything in the past 20 years.
No.
But
he is an interesting...
he is a comic book man.
Ed Piskor talks about him all the time. He really was the guy who understood indie comics in the Image scene. He was the guy who was working before Marvel on indie comics, underground comics, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So it makes sense that he'd be the father figure to all these younger kids and shit back in the 90s and stuff. But anyway, skip forward to now. These guys are still working, still doing this thing, still selling comics. And, you just heard me complain about Marvel, what they're doing. They're going to polar opposite view of Image Comics. They're doing it right these days.
Oh, yeah?
They're putting out comics that people want to read. They're putting out comics with depth. They're putting out comics that are good, that are worth your time, that are not expensive.
Right. This is longer than any book we have. I'm going to read out these price tags. I got $5, $5, $5. These are all maybe 24-page books.
And that Ultimate Spider-Man #1 was like $7, $8 or something
like that. That was a good book.
This is, $7, $8 for 25 pages. You got $4 for 50 pages of Jason Fabok art.
Yeah.
You know the last time we got 50 pages of Jason Fabok art?
Three
Jokers. You know how much
issue
that
was
fucking
$8.
book was? Yes, sir. It was $8.
And
because why? Because it's a DC title?
Yeah, and they bound it or some shit. This is probably the same book. It is stapled, so maybe it falls apart 1% easier. Okay. You're saving a bunch of money. You still got a cardstock cover. It looks great. The paper quality is the same, if not better. You're not missing anything from that $8. There's no advantage that you are gaining from that price tag.
Actually, you're gaining that wasn't even a canon book.
Yeah,
it was a Black Label book. So that book goes nowhere.
Yeah,
it does 3 issues and does nothing. Goes nowhere, means nothing. It was just fun.
Yeah.
So sorry. So we got Rook Exodus though. So I just can't stress enough how much Image is doing what comics should be doing.
Right. Honestly, all they're doing is just getting the right people believing in their creatives, and it leads them astray sometimes. They publish a lot of comics that we don't read.
Yeah.
But they publish many other comics.
Those comics are being read by other people.
Right.
It's not like Marvel where they have to restart Scarlet Witch every 4 or 5 months because the audience isn't going to know to keep reading it because they're only buying it for the #1 in the covers and crap. Or X-Men comics that sell because they say X-Men on it and nobody's reading it. Or like Spider-Man comics that are actually garbage. Actual comic book garbage that are $5 to $6 an issue that have like 18 pages in it of lazy art by like
John Romita
Jr.
Who's even...
Come on! At least goddamn DC is like, they have a lot of problems too, but at least they got damn good creators on their books.
Yeah.
Marvel
They do a really good job courting people. Marvel is kind of content to let their characters sell their books. I feel like DC at least has... Like, they poached Chip Zdarsky. That was totally a thing. They were like, we have to get this guy. He's doing... I would not be surprised. I mean, Jim McKay's such a Marvel mark, I kind of would be surprised, but I would not be surprised if DC's been trying to get him, just with how successful he's been, how acclaimed Moon Knight is.
Yeah.
And, like, Black Cat. Like, I couldn't even say Avengers is really acclaimed, but Black Cat, I heard a lot of people talking about.
Yeah, people like that book, and Doctor Strange, people like that book.
Yeah.
So, anyway, all right, staying on topic here. We got Rook Exodus, Jeff Johns, Jason Fabok, Brad Anderson, the 3 Jokers team.
Yeah, a dream team in a lot of ways.
A dream team. Jason Fabok can draw anything. He's one of those guys who can just draw anything.
Yeah.
Name it. There are birds in here that look great. There is tech in here that looks great. There are buildings in here that look great.
There is
Everything
devastated buildings that look great. That is something that is a lot harder to draw.
Everything. So the book opens. We got this intro paragraph that already brings you into what the book is. Like even before these 50 pages, Jeff Johns
gives a lot of good context.
Jeff
I think
Johns,
without it, there is something missing from the start.
Yeah, maybe. But Jeff Johns wants to make sure that you have the right information before you jump into this comic book, which is not something people do very well in this industry. And then right after that paragraph with the credits page and stuff, you get this opening page where it's just this really well rendered planet that looks like it's been destroyed.
Yeah.
And it's got the alien motif of it's the year blah 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 blah. This is the ship blah 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 blah. So on and so forth. But instead, it's just
it's a brief history. It's like this planet was discovered, this planet was colonized, a mission went to this planet was evacuated at this time.
It gives you 4 or 5 dates and the name of the planet and the system it's in and tells you what's going on.
And the timeline tells a story in and of itself, because I think it's maybe 50 years. And they describe the finding of this planet, the colonization, the arrival of the first people to the exodus. And that's 50 years.
Yeah.
And it tells the story in 4 sentences of how rushed the cultivation of this planet was, how bad things got, how quickly.
Yeah, it's actually only 20 years.
That's even worse.
Yeah, so this thing it went to shit pretty quickly. But the story here is, before we go too crazy on the notes and stuff, is so there was a exodus is a good word to use.
Yeah.
An exit of the planet Earth.
There's a group of farmhands, pretty much, the help, that are stranded on this planet now with this technology that allows them to talk to animals.
Let me get there.
Okay.
Earth is destroying itself a lot, it's doing now, and only far worse. So much so that there's floodings happening all over the world, and people aren't eating, and there's a lot of problems. And so this company, similar to the Wayland industry in Alien, Better World, trademark, wants to ship people off to this planet in the Kepler galaxy, in the Kepler system, that's being terraformed for humans. And so they do so, and they're shipping a bunch of people there. But in doing that, in colonizing a planet, you need workers. You need people that are willing to put the effort in to establish themselves and build communities and run shops and farm and all this good stuff. So they go and offer all of these farmers and middle American workers all of these great deals. We'll give you a giant place to live. We'll pay you super well. You'll never have a problem ever. We'll give you super cool science technology to do your farming and stuff like that. A bunch of people jump in. Our main character is one of these guys. He comes from a farm somewhere in middle America, Oklahoma or some shit like that. And but then things go wrong, like Chris was saying. They're on this planet. All of these people are on this planet living happy-go-lucky for a good 20 years. Year 21 comes over. This
I think they call it the Earth Engine.
Yeah, this engine, the thing that's terraforming the planet for them, blows up. For some reason, we don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah.
And in the process of it blowing up, it somewhat destroys the world, and the world starts falling apart because the world itself is not successfully yet fully terraformed, I guess.
Yeah, or it needs to be continuously terraformed.
Right, something like that. Again, we're missing a little bit of information here. So, everybody starts leaving back to Earth, presumably.
Right. The paying people all go to Earth, and they pretty much leave the help.
Laborers.
And they mention, we'll come back for you, and it's been like 2 years.
And so we are stranded with Rook on this planet. Rook is the name of our main character. And his plan is to get off of the planet.
Yeah. All these people are like building like very jerry-rigged rocket ships.
It seems, and by all these people, Chris means the people.
The workers.
The people we got an example of was the scientists.
Oh, right.
This is a really big. There's a large. If the scientists are still there and the farmers are still there, there's probably a large population of people that are actually still left on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
If you're colonizing a place, realistically, a lot of the people that are there are workers of some sort.
They give a number at one point. It was several million.
So, I don't know if that's who's left.
No, but like there was a large population at one point.
Right.
Even 1% of that is still
Right. Whoever's left is
100,000,
left, but in any case, it's not too relevant. What's important is this dude's trying to build a rocket so that he can get the hell off of the planet.
Yeah.
He's doing that by, like, scavenging. He calls himself a scavenger. Names himself a scavenger.
Right.
And the other advantage the only advantage he has, I should say, the small advantage he has, right, is this mask that him and his other co-farmers were provided. And what the mask does, this wasn't explained very well. But what the mask does is it gives him control over a certain animal.
Right.
And in this case, it's birds, which brings me to one of my notes, which is theme.
Right.
The book starts off, you open it up, right? You get to this planet thing. As soon as you get off this planet thing, in the first panel, there's a bunch of birds. Specifically black birds. I don't know the difference between ravens and... what's that other one that's black?
Crows and rooks.
Crows.
He mentions, I think there's a biography at the end, like he crows like ravens, crows, rooks. It's very specific black birds.
Black birds. But
I think those are like the carrion ones or something. The ones that are scavengers. So very 100%. Much like him.
Right, 100%. Again, with the further themes there. But where I was going is black birds are typically a bad sign. And like a bad omen luck kind of sign. And the first panel shows like a rocket that's about to get ready to send off, but it's surrounded by blackbirds. And the rocket goes up, and you think it's going to launch, and it's going to have a good time, and it explodes in midair and crash lands. And then we get introduced to Rook, and Rook's going to go and scavenge this now dead rocket. He comes across as like a scientist who's dying, hands him a picture of what we think is his family, and he's like, "Stop them from burning," or something like that. And Rook, like the message that he gets from this dying man, carries with him, so he keeps the picture. But we don't do too much with that yet. I think that's a story later to be told.
Yeah.
Right now, in the story, they're concentrating on who Rook is, what he represents, what he's about, how he uses the birds, and what's happening on the planet.
And really letting us live in his world, too. There's like a 10-page sequence where we see him scavenging. There's this really great page where we see he goes to these lockers or like doors someplace. Yeah. And we see he has this red can spray paint. He's just crossing off all these apartments, grabbing their shit, whatever is non-perishable.
So he's scavenging this rocket. He gets this picture. He leaves. He tries to meet up with his buddy who controls pigs.
Yeah.
This makes me sound like I'm like describing like the story I made with action figures or something. He controls pigs, and then his buddy's like, "I can't get to you." So his buddy is gonna come and meet up with him later. So he goes home to like finish his daily scavenging routines. His home is an entire city. Yeah. As he's entering this home, the road to the house actually kind of looks like a scene out of Akira. It's got this like this like lifted road that's off the ground and stuff, and there's a big old bubble that almost looks like the explosion in Japan that happened in Akira. Giving me Akira vibes. This whole thing's giving me alien vibes. And once he gets into the city, some of the words he says is there was 800,000 people in this city. Now there's 1. Yeah. Soon to be 0. And then he goes on his I Am Legend thing, which is what Chris was just describing. Again, Jeff Johns is pulling from all of these like great sci-fi sources and bringing it all together in a way that I wish I had done, because I think this is I love I love I Am Legend, Omega Man. I love Alien. I love Akira, and I've already seen all 3 of these in this book in the first 10 pages. So he's doing that. He's doing the I Am Legend thing. He's going through the city. He's scavenging for what food and drinks and stuff that he can find, and then he's bringing it back to his own home and stuff like that. And he's on when the book starts here. He's already gone through most of the apartments in the city that are all named after birds.
Yeah.
And he's on this place like Blue Pigeon or something like that. And he's on like room 700 and something. And then before the book ends, he's already on room 800 and something.
Right.
Which doesn't tell me that there's been a lot of time passed by, as much as there's not much in these rooms anymore to scavenge. Because the Earth is falling apart quite literally. Or not the Earth, the planet he's on is falling apart
And
quite literally.
the longer we go, the more food perishes. Pretty
Yes,
much.
and
It's
the
no
more
longer edible.
and the more the world falls apart. Even in just this issue, it goes from like okay to not okay pretty quickly.
Right. There's a point he mentions pretty early on. I think he says they have like 2 months, and then later in the book, he's like, we maybe have 2 months, probably a couple weeks.
Right. So they need to get off the surface of this planet, because this planet's going to be soon unlivable. And on top of that, all of their technology is breaking down. They're having problems controlling the creatures that they have. And after he's done like scavenging and stuff, finally his buddy shows up. They have like a little party, but he's trying to convince his buddy to help him with the rocket so they can get off this planet. There's a bunch of these people with these helmets too, these helmets that help him control animals and stuff. But he's only friends with the one guy who runs the pigs and has history with the wolf lady they call Dire Wolf.
Yeah.
Some sort of romantic nonsense, I'm sure.
Probably.
And so, he doesn't care about her or whatever anymore, so he's just trying to get his pig friend off the planet.
Yeah.
So that's their goals, and they party, they have a good time. Rook goes home, he wakes up, today's the day, they're gonna leave today. He goes to find his buddy. His buddy's camp has been ransacked. His pigs are dead. His technology is destroyed. Rook's like, what the heck is happening? And out of nowhere, the pig dude's like running at him, and he's being chased by a couple of giant bears. Giant 2-page spread that looks super dope.
Yeah.
Crazy looking bears. I don't know how you make bears look so cool. And then it ends with this person who has a face.
He's like a bear mask.
Bear mask. So he controls the bears, and the bears are huge. The bears are like.
Because they mentioned, whatever happened after society
tall.
collapsed, it, mutated the animals.
Yeah.
Because, even this guy with the pigs, he has, weird, huge pigs.
Giant pigs. So what I'm getting is the environment as a whole, the atmosphere and everything is being destroyed. So whatever was holding the normalcy has gone out the window. Mm. So now these things are eating whatever's left and probably being mutated for that purpose and that reason. And then the book ends, so it's a pretty straightforward story seemingly, but there's just so much depth within the characters, and one of the portions in the book is there's a training scene where everybody's getting accustomed to what it's going to be like to live on Exodus, and they talk about how all the farmers are going to be received of these devices, these mask devices that let them control certain animals. They go as far as to say in that training video that the animals are going to be dictated by your personality and what you like and what your preferences are, and what they think they apply to you. It's like a spirit animal kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then Jeff Johns goes as far as to tie this back to this kid's childhood, this guy's Rook's childhood, where he's on a farm back on Earth and he was trying to scare away these blackbirds with a scarecrow, and it just didn't work. But it didn't work maybe because these things were attracted to him. So all through the book also is he's explaining that this technology is dying, and part of the dying portion of it is the birds are now getting into his brain as much as he's getting into their brain.
Right. He doesn't like using it very much because their desires start creeping into his.
Yeah. He constantly mentions how they're just so damn hungry all the time and stuff.
I think the boar guy does too. He's like, he says something I think he starts to lose control of them. He's like, they're just so damn hungry.
Yeah.
I can't really get a good handle on them. They're constantly having to reboot the systems, almost like it's proprietary technology or something.
Yeah.
It's all part of the collapse of this society.
So that's basically the summary of what's going on. It's a crazy, sci-fi thriller.
Yeah.
And it's got a lot of great stuff going for it that's pulling from some of the best science fiction there is on the planet. This guy, Jeff Johns, he's got such rich nerd culture driven into his backbone that like anything he puts on paper is pulling from some of the greatest stuff that he enjoys himself.
I would say it's also important to bring up his Hollywood background. I feel like his if you don't know, Jeff Johns got his start in DC by working for Richard Donner, not through like any comics work prior. You obviously have a great appreciation for them. You know, you read all his stuff, you can tell he read comics his whole life. But he is a Hollywood guy first.
Donner is like the Superman.
Yes,
right?
and he did like Goonies and shit.
Okay. Yeah, I had no idea. To be
Yeah.
honest with you.
He was like his personal assistant near the end of his
Makes
life.
a lot of
and stuff.
sense. I know Jeff Johns is a California guy.
Yeah. Big Hollywood dude.
So that makes a lot of sense. But he's bringing a lot of that to
Yeah, that's what I'm bringing up. All his comics have that very filmatic vibe, almost like they could be film pitches, but he really, with the artists he chooses, with the way he writes them, really makes them oriented to comics. So he gets these great concepts and has these really filmatic, like, paneling ideas, but just the people he brings in helps give that comic feel to it as well.
Yeah, he knows talent. He's obviously a fan. There's not a lot. It's one of my biggest complaints when people write comics is when they have dialogue happening and narration happening in the same panels. Jed McKay's guilty of this, where I have to read the narration and read the dialogue and like carry two stories with me within the same panel. Jeff Johns does like the opposite of this. He'll drop all dialogue and just let his artist tell the story. The whole thing that Chris was talking about with these red X's on the doors.
It's silent.
There's no dialogue.
It lets the visual speak for itself.
Maybe.
You just get like, it's just such a depressing image in some ways. You're like, ugh. He's like, everything is like running out. It's just it's a sea of X's. Like, it looks like. It looks like it goes on forever. And you're like, oh my god.
Yeah. But
really
it's all
desperation.
from like as soon as Rook starts going to his city, it's all Jason Fabok just killing it. Just
and like
building the environment.
The 2-page splash we briefly alluded to before of like the destroyed city. It's like some of the most vibrant.
That's 1-page splash.
It is? Alright.
Yeah. The only 2-page splash is the bears ravaging everything.
Gotcha.
But in any case, yeah, Fabok's killing it. Fabok, I don't even know outside of 3 Jokers and some Batman stuff.
He did some Justice League for a while.
I don't
think
really
he did
know.
Dark Side War.
Like, I don't really know where this guy's, because I'm always of the opinion that most of these guys come from indie comics and work their way to Marvel and DC, build their Marvel and DC catalog, and then leave and go back to indie comics to do something that they brought their fan base with them.
Right.
But I don't know where Fabok came from to begin with. But
I think the advent of the internet has made it so that there is more and more people in this industry who just kind of have like an online portfolio that gets picked up. Jeff Johns is a guy who like knows talent when he sees it, picks it up.
Yeah.
I think really Fabok was just a guy he pulled for Justice League. I think that is his first work, and it's great looking stuff.
Yeah. This dude's killing it. Chris was making a analogy to Yvonne Heiss's stuff, who's also working with Jeff Johns on this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of these guys' art reminds me of the early Image crew. It's less concentrated on the big muscles and more concentrated on the like, storytelling process. Jeff Johns has a habit of writing like Tom King, like Alan Moore, 9-panel grids. Probably feels that that's just the best way to tell comics. He's probably right. Just because all of the masters, that's just how they do it. And Jason Fabok goes and breaks that a couple of times in this book to just do whatever he wants to do, and Jeff Johns ain't stopping him because this dude's got such a like ability to tell a story. Why not just let the dude?
All
do
the best
wants?
writers aren't precious about their writing. They let the artist dictate the story to some extent, knowing that they are also storytellers.
It's such a damn visual medium that I'm offended in these stories.
That is totally a
2-page splash. It's just I'm offended when they don't do this. But so much of this comic is actually just a silent comic that needs nothing but you to look at the images and you understand the story. That's the way comic books should be written. So this book is really strong. It's a really strong start. The only thing that I will say about it that is negative is that it has so many pages. Most number ones don't get 50 pages to tell their story. They get maybe 20, 30 pages tops to tell their story, and Jeff Johns unfairly adds an extra 20 pages in here to make sure that you guys get where he's going, but it was a quick read because
Yeah.
of all of the image storytelling and because of the fact that he doesn't double down the dialogue with the narration or anything like that.
And when a writer is good enough, there's a fluidity to their writing that makes it easier to read too.
For sure. There is a lot of fluidity in here. I'm going to go over some more references and stuff. There's there's a can of beans moment, which always brings me back to Watchmen, Dr. Rorschach eating his can of beans and stuff.
His cold beans.
Yes. There's a bunch of apartment buildings named after birds. And also the idea of this like world of tomorrow. He walks into one of these apartments, Rook, and it has this like welcoming like, hey, welcome to these apartments. We have this and this and this for you, and it starts to the letterer starts to like dissolve the words because it gets staticky or whatever.
Yeah.
Reminds me of like BioShock. I don't know if you've ever played BioShock.
Yeah.
You walk into a room. Sometimes you'll hear things in the background, and then it kind of just
that whole theater scene really
gurgles.
gave me like BioShock vibes.
Yeah. So he's even pulling from maybe like video games and stuff.
Yeah.
There's like
I think there's a shared movie that they're both basing on. I don't know what it's called, but there's some.
It also just
sci-fi
reminds me of Johnny Quest.
Yeah.
All that reminds me of Johnny Quest.
I think there's a huge migration theme throughout this book with like birds. The Better New World environment. There's a really great Jason Fabok. It might be a single page. I think it's also a double page splash where, as a kid, he's looking up at the cornfield that he worked on, and he sees like the crows. He thinks he's gonna see the crows flying away, but he sees all these ships in the sky, and it gives that migration, that early spring, late winter bird pack vibe. He's really establishing that. The whole thing gives me Western vibes in a way, due to the migration themes, the manifest destiny of it all.
Yeah.
That like the Old West has. Like I'm glad you wrote down all these sci-fi illusions. I was writing down Western illusions the whole time. I feel like, which is all in sci-fi too.
Yeah, I think it's all there. There's this moment where he gets drunk with his buddy, and then he goes to decide to do some work after he gets drunk with his buddy, and he falls. And he says twice, he's like, I should know. I can't fly. Caw.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that's there is to really show how much the birds are influencing him. I really think that he really meant to tell himself that he should know he can't fly.
Yeah.
And that he may have thought in his drunken stupor that he would be fine if he were to fall from some dumb height or something.
Right, yeah.
So just to really extend that influence that these birds are having him on, there's a lot of moving parts in this. These birds and the technology and the fact they got to leave the planet and all of the other farmers and these other workers and other people are trying to get off the planet, and then the animals are going crazy.
Right. Even the relationship with animals, I think it gives it a natural world tie that really helps to sell like the destruction of the world too. It's like this is what's happening to the natural world. It's bleeding into technology, and that's all falling apart. How like when we overstep technologically, what that comes back to on the natural world. I'm rambling a little bit.
No, that's a really good theme. Using technology to overstep the bounds of nature, and then nature kind of
which is all over this book. There's a
Yeah.
sequence where his father's watching the news, and that's where a lot of like our perspective on what the actual world looks like, and it's dire. So I think they say like unemployment's at like 33% or something, which is like double what it was during the Great Depression.
Yeah, it's pretty
maybe triple actually.
Pretty bad times before he leaves Earth. There's a point where like his dad like burns down his house and like kills himself.
Yeah, they're totally building up something that the company's evil. They set some shit up.
So many moving parts. So many moving parts in this.
Because I think they're like the last farmer families, like their backstory or something, or one of the last farmer dynasties. They've been doing it for hundreds of years. And there's even like a line when he dies that they like quickly mention, oh, this is gonna make a great super corp or some shit. They're like building something on the farmland. Like I read that. I almost couldn't believe Rook didn't put that shit together. It's almost so apparent to me they're doing some like evil corporation shit on the side that we're building to.
I didn't catch that. I thought that could have went a lot of different ways because it does the way that the panels are set up. It is like his father saying, "We'll never leave," and then you turn the page and the house is on fire.
Right, and he's like, Rook is babbling like, "My father would never kill himself. So he would never leave."
But then you think, what would happen if they stayed on Earth?
Right.
Like maybe his father changed his mind at some point, or maybe his father's still alive somewhere. we only got so many panels within that time frame that I don't think there's enough there to really tell anything
For
necessarily.
me, it was really the line where the guy is like, we're going to build something here. It's like, oh, they wanted the land. And they're getting this guy off of here. Like, I feel like, I almost think the company's plan, we're going to find out, is they wanted to get all these people off Earth, leave them to die, and bring all the rich people back to a planet they can now salvage. Because there's, I don't know, some nostalgia with Earth. They wanted to rebuild it, like call all these people or something. There's something going on in the background here. Because I don't think, with how the planet is set up to fail, I feel like the story's going to have to evolve from this setting eventually. I feel like the story has room to grow and evolve past even this initial sci-fi aspect. And we don't know how much they have planned for the story either. It's seemingly an ongoing.
Yeah.
I feel like if it is an ongoing, this book has to grow and evolve over time, and it definitely will.
Yeah.
We'll find out, though.
Yeah. That's about all I got for this book, though.
Yeah.
I will go as far as to say this book wasn't like incredible or anything. I wouldn't have held it up against even the first couple issues of Local Man, or even the first couple issues, any of the issues of Wonder Woman, or maybe some of the issues of Transformers, just because of how, there's 50 pages in here. You can just do more with that than DWJ can do in 20 pages, drawing, writing the whole thing himself.
Yeah. Inking it too.
Yeah.
I think he letters some of it.
So no, that's all Russ Wooten. So he does the
that counts.
The onomatopoeias. It's just really good. It's just really good sci-fi with a decent amount of depth in it. That's outside of the norm of the rest of the comics on the wall this week. It outbeated Moon Knight. Moon Knight's the best Marvel book that released. It's showing all of these people what you can really do with comic books instead of what they're doing in X-Men and Spider-Man and Deadpool and Batman and everything else.
Yeah.
People are getting lazy in comics, and this is not the time to be lazy in the comic industry. The comic industry is hurting. It's hurting even more so this kind of week than it has been in the past. So we really need to get this together, or else comics don't have a future. Jeff Johns could be writing TV shows. There's no reason he's doing this shit.
Yeah.
Other than his love for comic books. But if we don't have anybody that loves comic books anymore, we ain't gonna have any more Rob Kirkmans and Jeff Johns and Tom Kings. So we need people like Jeff Johns to kind of continue this old guard and bring in a new guard. And with people like Cody Ziegler and Jeremy Holtz and Leo Williams and even Joshua Williamson, ain't none of those people gonna bring in people that I want to read their shit. You look at people like Alan Moore and Grant Morrison, and even Jeff Johns has been writing for a while at this point. I want to see people inspired by those people come in and write stuff. You know, people like Lansing and Kelly, and Christopher Cantwell and Jed McKay, who seem to have taken notes from these people as opposed to other people. Jed McKay is going to be guilty of taking notes off of Doug Mensch, who's not even near the top of my favorite writers or anything. But comics have been around for a while, so you got to expand past your own horizons and see what's out there. So, but in any case, so these are the best two books. You got anything to leave off on here, Chris?
No.
I don't feel like I do either. Normally we do 3 or 4 of these, so I feel like we're ending a little short here. But
I think we chopped up Rook for a while.
Yeah, for sure.
We got a lot of good discussion out of it.
For sure.
There's a lot of good stuff.
Why should you buy Moon Knight? It's the best Marvel book on the wall. Capuccio's killing it. Rosenberg's killing it. The team is very married. They know exactly what they're doing. They're going to deliver you a story worth paying $4 for, even though they're charging $5 for it. Exodus.
God damn.
The reason why you should pick that up is for the best indie book on the wall this week. Great sci-fi stuff. Sets up a lot for the future. Jeff Johns is writing 10 titles right now.
And they're all, I can't say they're all good, but the ones I've read are all very solid.
I'm sure they're all good. I'm sure they're all good. Just some of them just aren't up me and Chris's alley.
Right.
We probably could have done.
Jason Fabok is doing career-defining work here. The rendering he's putting. This book could be black and white, and I don't think we would lose too much. Not to give any discredit to Brad Anderson. He's bringing some beautiful colors here, too. But everything is so heavily rendered. This book, I think, has been in the can for a couple years. I remember hearing about this years ago.
Yeah.
At least that Fabok was working with Jeff Johns on, what was it before Ghost Machine, Ghost Crow or something? Doesn't matter.
The unnamed and stuff around there. So a lot of these things have been in the works. So, check it out. Go by your local shop. Buy
It's
some damn comics.
$4. You can barely buy anything for $4, and you're getting this cardstock, great covers, 50 pages of Jason Fabok art, one of the best in the business. Great writing by Jeff Johns. It's like an easy sell, I would feel like. $4 in this current economy is almost disposable income. How much is a candy bar nowadays? Let's be honest. It's like $2 or $3.
He's asking the right questions, folks. All right, with that, we will leave you off. Thank you for watching.